Welcome to the Low Country Revolutionaries, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of Charleston, South Carolina's vibrant entrepreneurial scene. I'm your host, Bill Bellot, founder of Veritas Exoscience, and each week we're spotlighting the boldest innovators from the Chucktown startup community. These are the visionaries pouring their heart and soul into the businesses that are transferring Charleston into a global hub of creativity and American ingenuity. Get ready for raw, real conversations with the trailblazers shaping our city's future. Let's dive in. I'd like to welcome Jada Willis. Jada is a seasoned entrepreneur and CEO strategist. She is the owner of Jada Willis Consulting, where she partners closely with business owners and executives to strengthen leadership and build sustainable organization. She's also the author of Pantless Nation, and she co-hosts a podcast, Lead Through It, with Kim Andrews. Welcome, Jada. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. You've got a lot of stuff going on. That's awesome.
Yeah, I got some good things happening. It's all about impact.
Good. I love it.
Difference.
And you do, and it looks like you mainly focus sort of in that HR sphere for businesses and stuff like that. So what kind of things do you work on? What's going on right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So just as some background, I've been in human resources for 20 years.
Awesome.
And so I had an HR consulting firm, built that to 7 figures, sold it in 2022. And then one would be like, well, are you still in HR? And I always like to say, hey, you can take the HR out of my title, but you can't take the HR out of the girl.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I know about that.
So what I like to say is that previously, I was doing, HR consulting, and I compare it to if you have an emergency, you go to the emergency room. So I was getting calls nonstop, people fires, HR fires.
Oh yeah.
And now what I do, I'm more of like the Mayo Clinic. So
You're more specialty. If there's a really big problem, come to me, right?
Basically. And so a lot of the work I'm doing right now are more culture diagnostics and leadership concerns and issues, and even whenever the people problems have to do with HR.
Right.
So, who's the HR for HR?
Right.
So with that, I like to say a majority of my time now is focused on being a leadership and culture strategist. And so I like getting to the root of the issue, not just, hey, fixing the problem, fixing the fire, but hey, let's look under the hood and let's identify not just the symptoms, but let's identify the reason why. So we make some lasting, impactful change in the organization. And usually that's going to start with the top leader.
Right.
So yeah, the gist of what I'm doing a good bit now, sometimes it looks like bringing in a third-party investigator that leads to culture diagnostics and action planning. And then in addition to that, I'm doing a good bit of culture transformation work.
Oh, cool.
So that's, and to me, I'm an HR nerd, so this is all fun to me. Yeah. But it is slightly different than just that usual on-call HR consultant.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I used to do consulting a long time ago, and like back in the day, like 20 years ago, some of this used to be called, not everything, but some of this used to be called organizational change. And so you'd have a team.
That's exactly right.
Right. Yeah. I didn't know if it was still called that or not. And just for full disclosure, my wife has been in HR like 20 plus years too. So we talk about HR a lot. So I am very familiar with a lot of the stuff you're saying here. I'm not an expert, even though I pretend that to my wife, and it makes her very upset sometimes.
Well, hey, I mean, if you have HR at home, then you've heard the stories.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like I always say, nothing surprises me. I've had a couple surprises this year, but it's really interesting how culture is evolving, and it also has to do with multiple generations in the workplace, or how organizations are responding to the economic climate or business climate. So all of that is impactful.
Well, I have like a million questions for you on a lot of that stuff. I don't, some of this we can't touch, but some of this is like, one of the big things I'm sure you're seeing all the time is like the transition. I call it the transition. And it is this move from where people were fully remote for could be a long period of time, unless you're like, like some of my friends and stuff, they were in like law enforcement or first responder type
sure.
things, and they were there all the time. But there's a lot of people out there that, work fully remote, and now they're still in that transition period back. That's got to be a hard cultural change, right?
It is. And it actually relates back to the book. So I wrote during quarantine and COVID, I wrote Pantless Nation,
Right.
HR guidance for mastering remote work.
Oh,
And it's
okay,
because I
that's
was
funny. Yeah.
yeah, I had to move so many organizations that were dead set. And the clients that they were dead set on being in person. And then, the pandemic happened and there was no option. And what I've found is that a lot of leaders loved it.
Yeah.
And loved the learning how to function. But I think that most people and leaders have landed that we need a hybrid approach.
Right.
Right. And so there has to be like exchanging energy. You can't replace that. Being in person.
Right.
Feeling that other person's energy and relatability and that camaraderie. It can be developed virtually, but it's very, very different.
Yeah.
And so it is hard. And for some organizations, it's still a conversation of, hey, we've been so fatigued now from remote work. Do we want to still incorporate that in? And the best advice I would give is that the best thing for your team, your leaders, and your culture is a hybrid approach, truly.
Yeah.
What that looks like is usually like, 3 days in, 2 days off, that sort of thing.
Right.
So,
yeah. And, throughout my career, it's like I worked a lot in the DC area. So, there was a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities and stuff like that. And it's funny. It's like the thing you see after, later in your career, you start seeing stuff like all the impactful stuff. And I'm going to say this in a weird way. All the impactful stuff happens outside of work. But here's the key. The key is you had to be at work for the outside stuff to happen. So it happens on a trip, or it happens at a, restaurant, bar / after work. But if you weren't all in the office, you didn't go to the bar, restaurant, or whatever. Or if y'all didn't go on the trip, you didn't have those experiences. And so, yes, I'm down with what you're saying. This totally hybrid approach makes sense. But I think it's a different, just Bill's opinion, I think it's just a different mindset of, it's not about being in the office sitting in a seat. It's about creating opportunities to interact.
There you go. Yeah, it's about how leadership in the organization approaches connection, or communication in general.
Right.
Right. And so if there's still not, you could be in the office and really still not be connected to the person sitting next to you.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Right?
I've seen people go in the office, sit in their office, and have virtual meetings with each other, and they're down the hallway. It's crazy, right?
Exactly. But if you also do not know how to communicate effectively to the person that's sitting down the hallway, or the person that has the opposite personality style, then that in itself is going to erode trust. It's going to, right? And it is the responsibility of leadership to try to foster hopefully it happens organically, but there also needs to be internal structures in place about how we're communicating and what's the expectation. But then also, I like to think about it. This changed for me in my career, but I like to think about it as that I was originally from Pittsburgh. I am originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Nice. I moved to South Carolina. Yeah. And it was a culture shock.
A bit.
But also I was in HR, but I was so direct and so fast. And I got so much feedback that, hey, this isn't going to land.
No.
And so you got to really think about, and this is where I call it like the dial. You can dial up your personality to 10. Right. You can dial it back to 1. Yeah. But if you really want your message or whatever you're communicating to land with that person, you got to think about that other person's style, personality.
Right.
What do you want the conversation? What do you want that person to walk away with? And that intentionality isn't going to come from someone walking in and happening organically. Leadership actually has to foster this.
Right. Yeah. I, just a little side note. It's like one of the things I did when I was in the government, I worked for the federal government for many years, is I went to the Federal Executive Institute. And it was a whole month-long course. You were there in person, that kind of thing. And it's funny. It's like exactly the type of stuff you're talking about. A lot of the training, a lot of the thing was about, you could color it in the version of emotional intelligence. It was about the communication stuff. And, a whole month of leadership training, but that was some of the biggest stuff there.
Can I tell you, So I just presented on this, the 2% culture killers, and what is really happening in your organization. And it goes back to 2% of the issues or the people problems are actually causing 80% of the friction.
Yeah.
And it comes down, so it sounds so simple, but it's communication.
Right.
It's accountability.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could talk about accountability all day long. It's like, as a former federal supervisor or former supervisor, holy cow. I mean, and it gets into trust. It gets into authority to do things, and we could have 10 episodes just on that alone, because that is exactly where a lot of the issues come from. Truly.
If we as leaders work on it, okay, so I'm going to tell you my soapbox that I get on, and I'm not going to do this because we'll spending all day on self-leadership.
Right.
I truly believe, so I have spent the time in so many different organizations and spending like hundreds and hundreds of leaders, and realizing that most of the business and people problems that exist actually come from the fact of leaders not tending to themselves, in a sense. Like we expect, sometimes it's avoiding the tough conversation, avoiding accountability because we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, or sometimes you're just you're placing too much accountability, and then your ego's getting in the way. But all of that, how you show up contributes to how your employees will respond or perform or, show up to the workplace.
Yeah. And, it's also like, it's somewhat like some of the stuff I've seen is like integrity of the leader. Like, sometimes it's like regular life choices. There's the hard choice and there's the easy choice. Like I read this article online in LinkedIn about, there was this toxic workplace, and the lower level employee reported it up to change, said, hey, there's this toxic workplace. So some leaders say, well, it's easier to get rid of the employee that's reporting the toxic workplace than to deal with the issue because, I don't want to have to upset the apple cart kind of thing. So, that's just one of the things I thought of as an example of like when you were talking about that.
Bill, do you know what happens if that would be the case, that you actually terminate the employee that sounded the alarm?
Oh, yeah.
What would happen?
Yeah, so it gets ugly.
it gets ugly. By the way, there will eventually, and here's my prediction. I've had this for, my goodness, so many examples, because that's sometimes whenever people will call me, the business owner, the CEO will call me and be like, okay, this just erupted. This looks like EEOC charges, lawsuits. This looks like we're losing money left and right because our clients are like, the quality of the service or the quality of the product like just isn't there anymore. It can look like a variety of different things, but leaders won't address it until it's a large pain point.
Right.
I'm in the preventative business now. Like I understand there's always going to be symptoms and issues, but come on, I never want that organization to get there. I want to be rooted in core values. How does that show up in your workplace? But oh my goodness, terminating that person that is reported, as long as they're not a performance or culture issue.
Right.
Contributing to this toxic workplace.
Well, and you don't know. That's the thing is that nothing's ever clean and dry. Like, I'll sort of, segue a little bit here just for full, is that, one of the things that's a big cultural change for everybody right now is the two things. I'll give two things. There's probably a bunch more. The ability to communicate by any employee, especially on social media and stuff like that, and AI, and the usage of AI, when you can use it, when you can't use it. All of those things have changed what I see as like the regular corporate government structure, because there used to be a lot more control on what you could and could not use. It used to be a lot more control on who could communicate and who didn't communicate about, the company, the organization. And all of that is shifting everybody right now. So what are you seeing?
Oh my goodness. Well, you're right. So the protection from a people's voice for social media is governed by the National Labor Relations Act and the NLRB. So you're right, but the laws are continuing to change and evolve from an AI perspective.
Really?
I think that, yeah, absolutely. And so you're going to see it from a state by state perspective.
Okay.
Because already, so I work with actually several law firms, and what happens, I'll give you one prime example of what has already been in place from the legal direction, is the fact that if a client, okay, so if an attorney sends an opinion back or some type of document back to that
Right.
client and they run it through AI,
Right.
which is happening,
Oh, yeah.
guess what it does? It removes the attorney-client privilege, and you do not want that,
Wow. That's amazing.
right? And so, that being the case, I mean, honestly, the best part would probably, I mean, you'd be losing your case. I mean, like there's I don't know, it depends on what the circumstance it is, but it really breaks down. And now you no longer do you have attorney-client privilege. So you have to be really mindful and kind of ask if you're outsourcing certain things, whether it's accounting, whether it's, your employment attorney or HR, what right now are the laws for that particular relationship
Right.
from a financial perspective and otherwise.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I can give you like here's an example of how this could happen, unintentionally. So, like your email client, like I use a Mac. My email client will automatically summarize an email in the little, hey, this is what this email is about. That is basically AI looking
Yes.
at the email. So if I got something from a lawyer, what you're kind of saying is, okay, I have lost my attorney-client privilege with this email just because I didn't try this. It just does this automatically.
That's right. And
That's
so
crazy.
but we don't, and folks don't know, right? Like
Right.
AI in our culture is really far ahead
Yes.
of the laws, and that is, typically what happens. But I say all that to say, I believe it is and can be a gift as long as you're leveraging it
Right.
in the ways that are more so not from a dependent standpoint.
I agree.
And not of, right? And so don't lose the critical thinking. Don't lose the strategic thinking.
Right. Yeah.
Use it as a partner. Use it as use it to your weaknesses, right? And
Right.
so because there's so many different kinds of AI agents or tools to help you be more organized, such as, what you were saying as well. There is a way. And so what I'm also helping my clients do is figure out it's not a replacement of humans.
Right.
I think it evolves the job because even from an HR AI perspective, it's really neat that I go in and can conduct investigations. Now I can do them 10 times faster.
Oh, yeah.
It's a cost savings to both myself and the client. But you could say, oh, it's going to replace you.
No.
It's about leveraging that technology
Yeah.
in a way. So I think it's probably a reinvention of that duty or that job. That's what I'm seeing.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I'm old enough to have seen this play out before. So I was old enough to remember. I heard all of these same arguments, saw this same stuff. I saw people get up in arms and stuff about, believe it or not, the calculator.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was the same thing. I mean, you had teachers and other people protesting. You cannot bring calculators into the schools. It will ruin all the children. Blah blah blah. And it's gonna take away jobs from accountants and stuff like that. Oh, just another one. Computers. Oh, the computers are going to take away jobs from typists and stuff. Blah. It has happened before. Yes, are people's jobs going to change? And are people going to be doing different jobs than perhaps they were doing before? Absolutely. But, anybody that's used AI, even like the latest stuff, most people will tell you, my experience has been, it's about an 80% tool. It will get you about 80% there. But it's not the tool where it does it and then you just send it away like it's 100% good. That's a bad idea.
Also, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've heard about this, but AI does what's called hallucinations.
Absolutely.
And so there are errors and mistakes. I've tested it on employment laws.
Oh, yeah.
And even in South Carolina, because I like to fiddle around and play around.
It makes up cases that aren't even there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, you're making up stuff.
Yeah.
Chad. And it'll be like, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I know. I'm sorry, but you could have just got me in big trouble by doing that, right?
But it goes to your point of it's possibly 80% there,
Yeah.
but it still takes the human approach. And I think it's actually going to create more jobs just
Yeah.
different ones that we haven't necessarily considered. I know that several of my clients and even friends around the US that are now hiring AI strategist. AI
Right.
that wasn't existing,
Right.
you know, X amount of years ago. Well, honestly, just a few years ago.
Well, yeah, and you know, like I work in the standards world, developing technical standards and stuff like that,
Mm,
and you know, one of the biggest issues in that world is AI, and it gets back to your tie-in with the legal system. There's no clear legal opinion about where is the copyright and who
that's
owns
correct.
this material, and so most of the
Hmm.
standards developers around the world, they're like, you can't use AI because it corrupts our copyright of this material,
Mm,
you know?
hmm. Yeah, I wonder actually how it factors into intellectual property
Yep, it's all
and
about IP. Yes, absolutely.
right,
That's exactly
right.
what it is because the standards that
Mm,
these companies produce are their IP. And so if
yeah.
you use AI to produce it, that now is kind of who owns
Mhm.
it and who doesn't
That's
own it kind
interesting.
of thing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is about, I mean, it's kind of like also being a business owner,
Yes.
right? And it's the journey. Like this is a part of the journey of figuring it out along the way, how to include in other experts
Right.
on your path, but and we're also kind of all figuring this out.
Yes, absolutely.
Some that are a little bit further advanced and some that are saying, I don't know what ChatGPT is, but it's about the fact that we are figuring this out as a society together.
Right. Well, and you know, I talk to some really smart people in the AI industry, and that's
Oh,
like their
that's cool.
business and stuff. And like, you know, some folks here in the local area in the Charleston areas, they run this
Mhm.
company called Silicon Harbor Technologies. That's kind of the nickname down here for Charleston. And you know, they were telling me all this stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this is absolutely right. What they
Mhm.
do, and I think a lot of companies are doing this, is they don't use one agent or you know a fancy way. They don't
Yes.
use just one model. They compete the
Mhm.
models against each other. The other thing
Yeah.
is, it's like you know, I love their
Huh.
Kenny is the guy I was talking to. I love his description. You know, most AI agents are like a brilliant 3-year-old with short-term memory. You know, it is kind
That's
of like
good.
that because you get all these rosy kind of things from it. It's
Uh-huh.
like you know, and it's brilliant. But then you
Mhm.
come back and talk to them like 10 minutes later. It's like you're starting from scratch again. It's like, oh my God, you know. And so it is a challenge right now with the laws and how they work.
Exactly. But what's really neat, I mean, I like Chat and Claude,
Yeah.
Gemini. I mean, like right? So to leverage those, but I have noticed, and I have some really smart friends that will use the agent. They kind of tested it for
Yep.
different things.
Yes.
Um, and I don't know if this is the case because I haven't, dived into it, but I haven't dove into it. But basically, maybe they use Claude and it's more of the in-depth
Yeah.
planning, strategy, and thinking. Chat, more of the instant type of thinking, even like marketing and communication. I don't want to be the expert on this by any means, but I think what it goes back to our point of how do we play around? How do we use these systems, use the, AI to help us perform better, faster, stronger, right?
Absolutely. I'm totally down with that. I think of it, I think of it a couple ways. It's like, AI models and systems it's like having a group of friends or having
Hmm.
a toolbox. You can think of it
Right.
either way, which makes sense to you. But, if you were making a decision, would you go to one friend or would you ask multiple friends? It depends on what you're trying to get
Right.
to, right?
That's a great analogy.
The same thing
That
with
is
a toolbox. It's like, okay, I would use a hammer for nails, but I wouldn't use the hammer for, digging.
right.
It's kind of like,
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I can
That's
dig
good.
with a hammer, but it ain't going to be very effective. And that's kind of been my experience with AI, right?
That's good. Hey, I want to bring up something. I just had
Yeah.
a bit of an aha moment is that, from this AI perspective, I just think also leaders, I mean, people in general
Right.
are burnout.
Yes.
And leaders are we are experiencing actually some exiting from top leadership positions, leadership positions.
Right.
And it's because of burnout.
Right.
Well, if we look at using AI as more as this partner, this friend, this tool, I think that could also be complementary to counteracting some of the burnout effect.
Absolutely. Well, it kind of goes with something. So I talk to a lot of techie type people, scientists and engineers all over the place. And, this comes up often and I'll put it into a bigger bucket. Bigger bucket is the epidemic of loneliness.
Oh, absolutely.
That affects everybody. But it's also sort of what you're talking about in a leadership position. Who do you go talk to? Okay, I can pay and go talk to a therapist, but that's not the same as talking to someone of the same kind of expertise area, and you can have different conversations there. And, maybe like you said, AI might be a nice place to do that if you can keep it private.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't use names, any client information or business information, keep it from a general sense.
Right.
Which actually is a really good segue, Bill, about the Hard Conversations AI Toolkit that I just launched this week. Can I talk about it?
Absolutely. I want to hear about this. That's why I wanted to talk about AI, because I know you're like into this and you've got something going on.
That's good. That's good. You know what? You're a smart guy. Okay.
Not really.
So I've been working on something for quite some time. And at first it was just going to be that Hard Conversations type of book or ebook. But I'm like, oh, no.
Right.
This needs to be more of, if you could put Jada in your pocket.
Yeah.
Right? What would that look like? Because I used to say I eat Hard Conversations for breakfast. I've been having them from an HR standpoint, we have hard conversations in our personal life, with our kid, like whatever the case may be. Hard conversations are going to be present no matter what's happening. If we are living, we're having hard conversations. Well, I put together a course and a toolkit. Okay. So essentially, I'm guiding you through the most common types of hard conversations, but also what's my secret sauce? There's like 5 frameworks that you can use to approach any conversation.
Oh, cool.
But I give you the frameworks, but I also say, hey, which is my favorite?
Right.
So I dive into a seek to understand meets SBI. So a seek to understand meets specific behavior impact.
Right.
And then it sounds like it's hard. It's not. I actually give you examples, and I also give scripts. But then I give you the scripts and the prompts that you can put into any AI tool.
Oh, cool.
That you can role play, that you can use Chat or Claude or any of it to say, okay, here's my specific scenario, but here is really the prompt to get the thing I'm looking for, right? And then you go back and forth. You can even say tone, language. I want it to be in my tone, in my voice, like this human. And so I also give you a cheat sheet whenever, oh my goodness, well, we haven't scripted for this. I don't have a talk track for this. And then it goes off the rails.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little cheat sheet of 5 minutes of how to prep. If it does, that conversation is not going like you think it should. This is how you can bring it back on track. In addition to that, I think if you actually use this toolkit, you can have any hard conversation, and in less than 15 minutes, you can feel confident, you can feel clarity on your message, you can feel like, okay, I also have the emotional wherewithal to not let this get into, anything worse, escalated.
Right.
But more importantly, hopefully it actually is impactful. You want an employee to improve.
Right.
This is more for, again, the leader, the HR, the professionals. But if you use this on your spouse or your loved one, you can
carefully, very carefully.
Very carefully. You can still use this type of strategy to make sure that you're communicating so it is really a win-win for those involved, but you're helping to get that person to understand you.
Right.
And there'd be a better result. So there is a 5-minute blueprint. Let's just say you download this and you're like, I don't have any time with this. I don't want to commit to it. Start with the 5-minute blueprint.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
That is amazing. I love this. It's a really great idea. Because, prompts and prompt engineering and all that is an art right now. I mean, if you don't use the right kind of wording, AI bots can go all over the place, like you said. And this is, I mean, what you put together sounds just a really amazing. Like I can say, especially if you're like a new leader, new supervisor, whatever, it's one of those jobs where you get thrown into it and there ain't a lot of, there ain't a lot of training. They say there's training, but there ain't. And, it's kind of like, it would be great to have some place to go to where you're like, okay, I want to try this. Is this a good approach, or how's this going to be, how's this going to be received? What's the possible repercussions if I do it this way versus that way? Because that's really what you're trying to figure out. It's like, oh, I've got this one employee who is not performing. They've done this thing. How do I have this conversation with them? Nobody can tell you how to do that. And, I'm sorry. Yeah. If you go to HR is not going to tell you how to do it either. Cause it's like, we'll come to the meeting if you're worried about it, but we're not going to tell you what to say. We'll give you some, general things of not to say.
And I realized that I was more the HR that wanted to role play and give you the ideas.
Oh, wow.
But that's not like typical. HRs are not trained. Yeah. They're not also, no. I mean, that's why this is also for HR.
Yeah.
Because it's not as if we go through, I have my undergraduate, my master's degree, HR certifications. I can't tell you one class or session that I took that it was teaching you how to teach others, how to have hard conversations. So this is a gap. Like,
it's a huge gap. Yeah.
We need to make hard conversations just easier so we stop avoiding them.
Right. Really. And like you said, while there's a lot of training, a lot of certifications, there's not a professional kind of degree in HR. And as you know, in HR, there's a lot of specializations, and most people choose a specialty area. And so, and guess what? Problems don't usually fit in just one bucket.
No, that's exactly right. That's why it's not just, there's 20 AI scripts in here and prompts.
Cool.
Do you know what that means? That means that imagine all of the conversations and variations that you really could have, but we're also trying to anticipate. So what I did was look back to the conversations, really like what are the themes? What are the typical? And they do kind of repeat, and there's patterns.
Yep.
So that really it would be this net effect of trying to this catch-all.
Right.
And then, so I just really believe, and to your comment, there isn't training for leaders, especially new leaders. There's just not. Yeah,
exactly. And, the old days and even before my time, there used to be a bit more mentorship for new leaders. And it's just it's not happening like it used to, from what my understanding.
Oh, no, it's not. And I think it's because we're also getting, busier, let's create it faster, stronger. Yeah. And there's an expectation that just because you're good in your role as an individual contributor, that you should be really great at leading.
I laugh really hard because I've seen that play out. I've seen people that are brilliant scientists and engineers, and they're the most horrible managers in the world.
I've seen that. Engineers and attorneys. I'm like, there was no training here. There's no guidance on.
Yeah, and the organizations are never structured in a way where that person can go up in the organization and not be a manager. So it's kind of like, you're heading for a disaster here.
You want more pay, you want more money, or you want more responsibility. It usually comes from managing other people.
Right.
Man, we could.
Yeah, I know. That's a whole. That's 10 more episodes too. So
I know. Right.
So how do people get a hold of your training? Is it online? Is it delivered in person? How does that kind of happen?
Absolutely. So I put the link, and I would love if we can put that link in the bio as well.
We will.
But it's jada-willis.mykajabi.com.
Okay.
If you go right now, just because it just did a launch on Monday, but nice. I'll tell you this: if you just go to jadawillis.com and you shoot me, my contact, I'm gonna actually give you a discount code.
Wow.
So I will send you any listener that you're like, I would love some help here with some of these hard conversations.
Oh yeah.
Go to my website, put in the contact, and I'm going to shoot you a discount code and the link.
Cool. What about like, we have like a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs in this area, and they're growing, and they're having to make the really hard decision, like who to hire, and maybe not yet, but maybe some, like, well, who should we let go kind of thing. Is some of that in there too?
A little bit. I think more so there is in the introduction, but I think it will teach you a lot about yourself and your own decision making.
Okay.
So sometimes I think that there are natural instincts that we ignore because you meet people. If you've done the job, right? You've actually done well in that job. You can immediately see some of the red flags, but we get so excited about filling the role or filling it fast, where I think it's about make sure. This is going to be some good HR advice right now. Before you go about that interview or even really that job posting, I want them to do a brain dump. Do a brain dump of actually what are they going to be doing day to day, but then like who's that person? Do an ideal candidate profile of what's their personality? Do they take initiative? And again, can be 4 bullet points or 5 bullet points from the personality perspective.
That's amazing right there. I wish almost every HR, especially in the federal government, a personality test would change the world, because that's usually where a lot of the friction gets in. It's not always, yes, you have the classic categories of performance and behavior, but it's really personality that drives a lot of this,
Personality, culture.
Yes.
So if they're a culture fit,
right,
then I like to say hire for attitude, train for knowledge.
Right.
I would love some of the experience, but like, what are the natural skills that someone needs to come in? Like, for instance, if you know that you don't have training for, and you have multiple systems, and you don't have a robust training program, well, I need that individual to be tech savvy or tech intuitive. Right.
I've seen it all. It's like, I remember a long time ago, I was helping a lady. This was a long time ago. I asked her to, click on the thing on the computer. She literally lifted the mouse up and moved it in the air. And it's like, okay, no criticism of her. She just didn't know how it worked. But it's like, okay, if you don't know how the mouse works, we've got to start from really the basics here of how things go on a computer,
Exactly. And then in the interview process, I want you give them scenarios. I mean, like worst case scenario, one thing, like something easy from an office manager perspective. I like to give the scenario of like, hey, a client walks in, the phone's ringing off the hook. You have a deadline that's in like an hour to the business owner. Tell me how you prioritize. Tell me what you're going to take care of first. Do you know why? It shows critical thinking. It shows what's the response. And also, if their body language is already stressed or exasperated, I'm pretty sure they're not going to respond well under pressure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was what I used to tell people working in D.C. metro areas. Like, your biggest decisions are about what you're not going to do. Not what you're going to do. It's what you're not going to do, because you're going to have a list of things that you can't physically complete. There is not a time and there's not enough energy to do all this. So making a decision about what you're not going to do and figuring out what things you're supposed to do, but what we call OBE. They're going to be overtaken by events, and they're going to fall off your list naturally. So you don't need to waste time on that. That's what makes you survive.
You're good. Okay, listeners, that's an underline in bold. That was solid feedback. A mic drop moment from Bill right there. That was great advice.
Well, I'm not going to pretend I know anything. So that's why I'm going to ask you, what advice do you have for the entrepreneurs out there that are listening to you and going, hey, what would Jada tell me to do?
Man, and it's such a broad question because there's so many different areas, right, that I would want to dig into. But I would say from my entrepreneurial journey, I would want you to establish, it's along the lines of what you said, what are your non-negotiables? Right?
Yeah.
What are your non-negotiables in business? Meaning that if you really feel like you're not in alignment with a client, a prospective client, and it's not a values fit, it's not, like there's something in your gut's like, oh, I don't think I should take this on, but your bank account says,
your bank says, oh yeah, you should.
You should take this on. I I'm going to challenge that. And I know that we have to keep the lights on, but I'm going to challenge you to say, I promise you that usually that client is going to take 10 times, 100 times the
Right.
effort, energy, and be more of a cost suck to you than actually passing on it and letting that next perspective, client come
Right.
through.
Right.
So but really it's also about, remember that you are deciding from an entrepreneurial standpoint to bet on yourself.
Yeah.
You're doubling down. You are a part of the rare breed of human, right? The
Yeah, for sure.
trailblazers. Yeah, right. The change makers. And that it's gonna be hard,
Right.
but there's always a trade-off here. But at the end of the day, if you do not give up, the hard work will pay off.
Nice.
It always does.
Nice. I love that. That's a great way to kind of close it up. I'm not even going to say anything more. I don't want to even mess that up. That is awesome. That's gold. I appreciate it, Jada. And thank you for your time today. It was a great conversation. Come back on. I know there's a lot of other stuff we can talk about now.
Absolutely. I've been honored to be here. Thank you so much. And Bill, you're a wealth of knowledge. So listeners, keep listening.
Thanks. That's a wrap for this episode of the Low Country Revolutionaries. Thanks for joining us as we celebrate the fearless entrepreneurs making wave in Charleston's Chucktown Startups community. I'm Bill Ballot, and it's been an honor to share these inspiring stories with you. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a spark of low country innovation. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.